Welcome to the Embodiment Podcast. This show is for you if you see the body as more than a brain taxi. It's for people interested in coming home to the body as a holistic aspect of who we are and how we live. Episodes contain practical tips, exercises you can take away, and interviews with specialists from around the world. I'm your host for today, Mark Walsh. So I'd like to read some extracts from my upcoming book, Embodiment. This book's been a bit of a labour of love, self-published in November, lots of help from everyone out there. So thank you, all those of you who follow me on Instagram and Facebook and have been helping out with various things. I appreciate that. It's an introduction to the field, very accessible, very readable, very practical, a little bit of theory and also some personal stuff. So I've illustrated it with some poems and some sort of personal stories from my life, which illustrate the power of embodiment at work. So I'd like to read out a few extracts from the book. Embodiment. Why bother with embodiment? Well, when we start to see the body as most accessible aspect of ourselves, we're profoundly empowered. We gain access to our own operating system. We can know ourselves to a new depth, can change our state and develop our being. We cease being victims. We connect to and influence others more effectively. We become more ethical. We simply and profoundly reclaim our humanity and our birthright by coming back home. So 10 reasons you might want to develop your embodiment. To know what is blindingly obvious to everyone else about you. To have a choice. To manage your neurotic insanity and out of control emotions better. To be a bit less of an asshole a bit more of the time. To be a more compelling leader, more sensitive parent, or more vibrant lover. To heal the shit that your parents couldn't so that you don't pass that on to your kids. To have more fun and deepen every pleasure. Really, it all gets better. To stop making everything so bloody complicated and to start enjoying the simplicity of relationships. To be more creative, to tune into a clearer sense of purpose. Number 7, to feel deeply at home in your own skin, to have a bodily sense of belonging. To play more freely with children of all ages. To get unhooked from addictions, large and small. To be better connected to our own needs and values, to be less easily pushed around by others' agendas, to be more sexually attractive in a way that has nothing to do with your physique or standard society beauty norms. 2, and screw every cynic who has given up on this, to make the world a better place, to feel truly alive and be fully human. Now, I'm quite aware many of these may sound too good to be true. Embodiment isn't a miracle cure, but all this is true. And I go through a lot of these in detail in the book, but don't believe me. Do the work, find out for yourself. So this is like right at the start of the book. I want to say, look, here's what's possible for embodiment. Actually, this is one of the last ones I added because for me, it was like why embodiment was just kind of obvious, the benefits for me and people I work with are just kind of obvious. And someone said, you know what, if you're going to put this, you need at the beginning of the book to say, why bother with this? I think if anyone listens to the podcast, many of these will be pretty obvious, but yeah, another one I've got a list here is the 10 F's, the essentials of embodiment. This was inspired by my friend Rafe Kelly and Ido Portal as well. And we call them feeling, freeing, friending, fighting, fixing, fleeing, fucking, frolicking, funking, and feeding. So this list is like 10 bodily basics. So it's feeling, mindfulness, emotional awareness, intuition, freeing. So it's like freeing yourself up, self-regulation, friending. So it's connection, authenticity, empathy, even leadership, fighting, obviously martial arts, fixing. That's for healing arts, fleeing, running, parkour, fucking. This includes, romance, tantra, blah, blah, blah. Frolicking. So like human play, funking, the free dance, the expressive arts, and feeding. So restoration, sleep, food practices. So the 10 F's of embodiment. I rather like that one. That's a bit of fun. Yeah, some of it's like laying out the beginning, looks like laying out some of the problems of embodiment. So some scary thoughts, Many of the features of modern life are deeply numbing. The education of our leaders, teachers and doctors is one of systematic dissociation. A disembodied world is a psychopathic one. So 3 lines why we need embodiment. Something on the body political. Here's a nice little one. Things that can be subtle forms of disembodied self-abuse. Eating and exercise habits, including seemingly healthy ones when taken to extremes. Overwork and busyness. Choice of friends and intimate partners. Not loving one's own country or culture because it's part of you. I know that one's difficult, some of my liberal friends. Staying poor long-term when given opportunities for improvement. Self-love is a lot more than bubble baths. So this is what it's full of, is little lists, and some of them will be challenging, some of them will be fun, some of them will be useful, really, as well as much as anything. That you'll see things there. You go, oh, that's really helpful. That reminds me of this. There's one that's, how do I know I'm cut off from my body, for example? And I'm kind of in the problem chapter, which is just depressing if I read all that. There's like a bit more theory, like short definitions of embodiment. How we are. The man of our intellectual being, that's also how we are. The subjective aspect of the body, an ontological approach to the body as I, not it. A type of intelligence, of the view of the body as more than meat, more than a thing, and more than just a brain taxi. The overall umbrella term for mind-body disciplines such as martial arts, yoga, bodywork, blah, blah, blah. The body is a verb, not a noun. Being more fully alive and most simply human. The magic of the ordinary. The art of coming home. So what is that, like 10, 12 definitions of embodiment, just as a list? And each, you could really think about that a long time. So if you're a complete beginner to embodiment, you could pick that up and go, okay, that gives me a bit of a sense of what it is. But if you're deeper into this work, like, body as a verb, for example, you can just think about that forever. This is, stuff you can really get into. There's a piece now on embodied intelligence. Kind of need the diagram for that, so I won't read that one out. I'll just tease you with it a bit. What constitutes? Well, we've got some new diagrams as well. Those of you may be following this on Instagram and Facebook may have seen some of Matt's wonderful memes that are coming out. It's much easier to show rather than tell on a podcast. All the different roots of embodiment, all the different branches of embodiment, loads of rows and arguments, but I think we've got somewhere with a lot of that. Yeah. Okay, let's skip ahead. Oh, this is a nice one. All one body. So it's almost a poetic, this. So this year I've been taking seriously a rather wild understanding that the individual body contains everything and all of us. Yes, everything and all of us. This is actually a pretty traditional mystic / tantric notion, microcosm of the macrocosm, as above, so below, body of Christ, etc. However, it's still a pretty huge, infinite idea. Well, no, somatic exploration, not idea. Meditation teacher Reggie Ray pushed me over the edge with this one, but it's been nagging at my unconscious for a while. As an embodiment teacher, the truth that the body is more than is commonly thought is not new to me, but the full extent to this is, way out there. I also rarely speak of the deeper aspects of my work for fear of misunderstanding and creating barriers for those new to it, but the time is right. It's apparent to me that I've picked up parts of cultures that I've spent time with. I'm sometimes mistaken for Slavic and Kambugi, a little Brazilian. I have my taking up space American side. In Israel, there are people who don't believe that I'm not Jewish because of how much that culture I can now embody. At first, I thought this was just down for vicarious trauma and general somatic cultural influence. However, having done the trauma work and travelled so much, my sense now is that it's more like I'm accessing the group bodies of those places. I've danced, fought and fucked more widely than most, and despite somehow avoiding diseases that perhaps should have killed me years ago, I'm surely infected. After a while, it's all one body and all in my body. I've long held the somewhat disturbing view that we essentially live in one another. My old Aikido teacher, William Smith Sheehan, once said, "We receive each other, we become part of each other when we train together, I in you in me." He was dying of cancer at that time, energized by a practice with far healthier young men. He was not a man prone to hyperbole or esoterica. Ancestral roots are also pretty obvious. We do the work in the body that the previous generation couldn't. We feel the grief, anger and hurt especially. At one point in a meditation, my spine felt topped by my grandfather dropping bombs. He was in a Lancaster bomber in World War II, and tailed on the other end the bowels of a merchant ship that was dodging U-boats. Well, the granddad was a sailor. In the middle, my heart was burning with German civilians screaming, but aided by my nurse grandmothers, who were nurses in World War II. Pretty intense, eh? When fasting, I am the Irish naturally, and also my Ethiopian brothers. I used to live there. I have wept not just for many nations already, but as many nations. The ones I have kissed with lips or fists were the easiest to touch again. Perhaps you've had strong experience of others you haven't seen in years, like in a dream. Perhaps they were more real than just memories or dreams, as if they almost had the life of their own, vividly visiting at night. I found this to be the case in the waking body too, an actual friend. They've picked me up from psychic battlefields as patron saints, lovers, still turning me on years later, and of course God's saints and archetypes, from Jesus to Marvel heroes to rock stars. They have a life of their own and a part of us, as is Donald Trump, Theresa May, the homeless guy with no name, the rape victim you never met, the rapist, etc. I have given birth and flayed children alive in West Africa. I've been the babies with AIDS that I've walked over on my way to breakfast, and the man who seemingly served me food at that breakfast. Call me by my true names, as the teacher of my first love once said. Soon he will be dead, and not. I don't often discuss these things in public. I prefer to keep my embodied work to what I can explain with more certainty, that which is pragmatic to people and won't scare them off. But tonight, as I reflect upon the divisiveness of the current political body, there it is. We are both sides, all sides. We contain it all. My heart beats in your chest and yours in mine. Odd, but deeply true. Some ways to get more, to give back, and to get more involved now. So the biggest request I have would be to share the podcast with your friends, people that you think would really enjoy it. Email it to them, put it on your social media, tell them about it, old school. Really appreciate that. Equally, if you want to support us financially, you can go to Patreon. That's patreon.com/embodiment podcast and give us $1 an episode. And I'd say they're well worth $1. So that's less than £1 if you're in UK-ish. So yeah, please go there. On the embodifacilitator.com website is where this is hosted. If most people I think listen to for iTunes. iTunes, we'd certainly appreciate a review. The way iTunes works means that a review means more people will find it. iTunes regards it as more important for searches. So even a couple of sentences review really does help as a little thank you to us. And if you want to go to embodifacilitator.com, you can see the actual, links to the sites. There's comments on there. The Facebook group tends to be where people discuss things. So if you go to put in the Embodiment podcast into Facebook, there's a page which is relatively quiet and a group which does have some discussion on. So I will reply to things personally there. So also on embodifacilitator.com website, there's all sorts of freebies there. There's videos, there's free ebooks, there's ebooks you can buy. And of course, there's our newsletter list. If you want to stay in touch and learn about things like the Embodied Facilitator course and our next Embodied Yoga Principles teacher training, then go to that website and you'll see a little pop-up and you can get the newsletter through there. Okay, so I think they're the main ones. Tell your friends, pay us some money on Patreon, give us a review on iTunes, send us your email if you want to be on the newsletter list, and get involved on the Facebook there. Bit long. Pick whatever you like that works for you. Until next time, welcome home to the body.